Pacific Northwest has this set of rules. Now, you have to understand, this is a very supernatural place. There is something in those woods. And when you go out there, you're entering into another realm. Things can and do happen. People disappear, and a lot of people have had strange experiences in the Pacific Northwest. Now, the first rule of the Pacific Northwest is that you never go into the woods alone. Whether it's night or day, you do not go out there without another person because there's stuff in those woods that tries to lure you, that tries to draw you in. The second rule, if you're camping out in those woods, you need to keep a fire going from dusk till dawn because it's believed as long as you have a fire well lit, nothing negative will disturb you. The other thing with camping in those woods is it's always suggested that you set your tent up facing the north. You always want to be facing the North Star because it's believed this will protect you from negative energy. Now, the third rule, right? If you hear, you see, you feel anything, you didn't. If you hear your name being called, if you hear music, if you hear singing, right? That is not real. Do not go towards it. The fourth rule, right? If you see an orb of light, you do not follow it. It will try and lure you into the woods. You will think, whoa, what is that? That's really cool. Do not follow it. The fifth rule, right? A lot of people say when they walk through the Appalachian woods, they've encountered what they describe as some kind of portal. And it will beckon you, it will call you to come into it. But you must never, ever go near that. You need to run away. Now, the last rule, anytime you go into the Pacific Northwest, you bring a firearm with you, and you bring one bullet. And if something negative comes your way, there are two options. Now, this is a story that comes out of the Pacific Northwest. It was in Northern California near Mount Shasta. There was this girl, and she said her father, Douglas, he went out on a hunting trip, and he went to somewhere near Mount Shasta. Now, he had gone on these trips many times before and never had any issues. This particular time, he goes to this new area in the woods to hunt for deer. Well, he said the first thing he noticed when he was going through the woods is that there was no wildlife. He didn't see a single deer. He didn't see any squirrels or, even insects. It was just completely quiet. So that night, he sets up his tent and he makes this big, huge fire. Eventually gets tired, he goes to bed. Well, he said he awoke to something shaking his tent. And the next thing he knows, he hears people talking all around him. He said it was just coming from the woods, like people were having full-on conversations. So he unzips his tent, he goes outside, and he notices his campfire is out. And he starts hearing noises like going through the woods. And he said that's when he's seeing all of these people just walking aimlessly around the woods, around his campsite. And he said they all had their head down. They looked very out of place. And that's when he runs over to his tent. He goes inside and he grabs his firearm and he just starts, hoping for the morning. He wakes up and he says, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm done hunting. Like, this is it. So he packs up his gear and he starts heading out. As he's walking this trail back to his car, he said he just got this really weird feeling. And all of a sudden in front of him, he starts to see this foggy mist start almost appearing in what looks like a perfect circle. And to him, it looked like some kind of portal. And he hears a voice calling his name, telling him to come. And he starts to feel himself moving closer and closer to this portal. And he said, he could tell that if he were to go into this thing, he knew that he wouldn't come back, that something was going to happen to him, but he couldn't control himself. He was just so interested in this thing. Finally, he snaps out of it and he takes off running down this trail back to his truck. And he gets out of there and he tells his wife and his daughter about what happened to him. 3 months after this, he's driving down the highway. When he's going over the bridge, he has a terrible accident. The car flips and he passes away. Now, his daughter, she believes still to this day, whatever he encountered out there in the woods had something to do with it. Everyone thinks that the Slender Man is this made-up thing, but even before it was given a name, people have made reference to this very tall, pale-like entity often seen dwelling in the woods. Now, the Native Americans, they had something called stickman. And in Eastern Asia, they speak of something called the hungry ghost. And all across the world, there is reference to this very tall, skinny, pale white entity that seems to lure people into the woods. Now, there was this man named Chris. Chris said when he was younger, he grew up in this very small town. And he befriended this kid named Philip. Now, he said Philip was kind of this odd boy. He didn't talk that much. He was very reserved, and he would get scared very easily. So he said him and this boy Philip and a couple other kids, they would hang out at this park in town, which sat up against the woods. He said one day they were all out playing tag, and that's when he noticed Philip was gone. And so he kind of started searching for him. And eventually he sees Philip. Philip is up against the woods, standing there, looking directly into it. And he's talking to someone. And Chris is kind of like, that's odd. Like, who is he talking to? So he goes over to him, and he's like, hey, Philip, are you all right? Is everything okay? And he goes, yeah, I'm fine. And he goes, well, who are you talking to? And he said, oh, that's just my friend. And he said, but there's no one here. And he goes, yeah, he had to leave. But I see him from time to time, and he lives in the woods. And he thought, that was strange. Well, he said several other times they'd be playing with Philip, and they'd be near the woods or something. And he would always disappear over to the woods and start having conversation with someone who wasn't there. And he said it started to just get really weird. So he decided he was going to press Philip more about who this person was. And he said that's when he told him. He said, many years ago, I met this man in the woods. He said he's very tall, he's skinny, he has pale white skin, he doesn't have a face, and he wears this black suit and tie, and he has a top hat. And he said he calls himself Mr. Nobody. And, he often comes and tells me about his adventures in the woods and meeting other people. And he says one day, I can go with him on an adventure. And he's like, well, like if there's some strange guy talking to you in the woods, like you should stay away from him. Like that's kind of weird. And he's like, oh, no, Mr. Nobody is, my friend. So he said one night they had this huge sleepover, and Philip comes over, and Chris said they started to tell like these scary stories. And they said all of a sudden, Philip started screaming, and he said, just like, stop, please stop. And they go, why? Why don't you want us to tell scary stories? Are you afraid or something? And he's like, no, Mr. Nobody